2020 at 6:30 p.m. And of course, we are doing another virtual meeting. 1.0 is our roll call.
Sharon Van Leer.
And
Katie Schwartz.
here.
Tracy Burnett.
Here. All right, 3.0 will be the approval of our agenda, and we do have an addition to the agenda, and that is 10.1, action item for the tentative agreement with the United Teachers of South Washington County Schools. So if you wouldn't mind saying your name first to move.
Louise, so moved. Simi, second.
Thank you. So we do need to have a roll call vote to approve the format of our agenda with the one addition of 10.1.
Melinda Doles.
Approve.
Louise Hines.
Yes.
Simi Petnaik.
Yes.
Pat Driscoll.
Yes.
Sharon Van Leer.
Yes.
Katie Schwartz.
Yes.
Tracy Burnett.
Yes. All right, thank you. 4.0, our district highlights. We will move that to our April 23rd agenda, as well as 5.0, which is public comment. 6.0 then is our consent agenda, and all consent items are considered routine and non-controversial by the board and will be approved by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items, but prior to the meeting, board members did have the opportunity to review each of the items and could have requested that any one of them be moved to an action item. We don't have that this evening, so I will entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda.
Katie, so moved.
Sharon Van Leer, second.
Well, I think I heard Melinda for a second. Is that what you heard, Dana? Just want to make sure we have to have that for the minutes.
I heard Sharon.
Sharon as well, but I think Melinda may have started first. Either way.
Katie and Melinda.
Okay. All right. So we need a roll call as well to approve our consent agenda.
Melinda Doles.
Yes.
Louise Hines.
Yes.
Simi Petnaik.
Yes.
Pat Driscoll.
Yes.
Sharon Van Leer.
Yes.
Katie Schwartz.
Yes.
Tracy Burnett.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Motion passes. Sorry, I should have said that. 7.0 are workshop items. We don't have any this evening. 8.0 are information items. 8.1 is a financial update by our Director of Finance and Operations, Dan Pine.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, members of the school board and members of the cabinet. I'm here to give the monthly financial update, and tonight we were going to focus on how the COVID-related situation has affected our financial position and some of the challenges we're facing. Just a little background, on March 15th was kind of the day we thought things would change. We had an executive order from the governor of the state of Minnesota, 20.02, which closed schools for 2 weeks in anticipation on getting ready for distance learning in reaction to the coronavirus situation. On March 25th, we had the governor's executive order 20-19 authorizing distance learning. With that order, there were many things involved in it, but really what happened financially for us, it was broken down into some main things. Number one, that we were to continue K-12 instruction using distance learning. Our K-12 instruction is all funded through the general fund. But we'll talk about that in a little bit, but most of that, the general fund funding all stayed there. We're also directed to provide free daycare to children of healthcare workers. And after a little bit of that, we were also instructed to provide it to what is called Tier 2 workers, mainly grocery store workers, clerks, and things like that. And then we're continuing to provide meals to those free and reduced, qualified, and actually anyone else in need. So those directives told us that we had to do a few things. As far as the instruction goes, that the funding for that remained the same as it's always been. We looked at our student count, and that student count went through. The expectation was that we would still get all our state aids and our levies in the general fund. And the expectation we were to pay all our employees, and we were also to pay our contractors. We do contract our special education bus routes, and we've been negotiating rates with them as how much we should pay them. So in the general fund, all the aid and levy does continue. We do have some issues with other revenues for support activities, and those revenues are lost, mainly fee-based revenues like spring activities, for instance. There's about $85,000 that we'll have to return, or that we'll never recognize in revenue because we won't have any spring activities, although we'll still pay a lot of the expenses. We will save some expenses on fuel and to a lesser extent utilities. And then also we'll save some expenses on transportation for activities and field trips as those won't happen. But we do need to return quite a bit of revenue that was collected before this happened. Of course, if we open up again in May and then we do all the spring sports, so we won't have to return that revenue. Probably still have a little savings in transportation costs. Then we look at our fee-based funds, and mainly that's nutrition services and it's community services funds. Many districts throughout the state are struggling with the programs that depend on fees. For instance, school nutrition department has been tasked basically with the job of producing 16,000 meals a week for those in need. And we do that, and we make sure they have meals for every day of the week. We also produce the weekend packs that go out in conjunction with So Washable Cares. It sounds like a lot, but actually we usually produce 70 meals in a day. And we have staff putting these meals together, but we have a lot of staff that don't have any meals to put together, and we will not get any revenue for the normal 16,000 a day. We're getting revenue for 16,000 a week, but not the 16,000 a day. So without our normal revenue streams from those meals, the school nutrition fund is struggling to pay its normal expenses. Community services fund, that's a mainly fee-based fund also. They do have aids and levies for some different programs. They have aids for preschool, the community services levy, things like that. That will still come in. However, our largest source of revenue in that fund is our school-age child care. Of course, that's not happening now. We're providing the free daycare. We operate 5 sites right now. And without our normal revenue coming in from the school-age child care program, the fund is struggling to pay its normal expenses also. We have looked at possible solutions. School nutrition is going to be tough. We are working and following legislation which may introduce some bills that could keep those funds whole. Community Services Fund and the governor's directive, they allow transfer of funds from the general fund to pay for the cost of the free daycare. That just adds another issue of the funds we have in the general fund, that we reduce that fund. That does allow that to happen. And also we're looking at legislation also, how they want to handle the fact that we have our normal employees working, but there's no fees to come in to support the funds. So those are struggles we're having with those 2 funds, and we'll keep up to date on what we're going to do with those and how we look at those. And you'll probably hear about that throughout the state. Different districts are doing different things. The other thing I wanted to look at that's really kind of COVID related was to talk about was our future issues for our school district financially. As you know, the general fund relies heavily on state funding. Most of our revenue comes from the state aid formula, and then another big chunk comes from the operating levy. Those are based on enrollment and a certain amount that the state has determined per student. And we know that the law says in 2021 that we will have a 2% increase. And we're hoping that they don't change that law. But right now, they would take some big action for them to change that. So we're kind of relying on the 2% formula increase for the school year 2021. However, a new biennium begins in 21-22. And as I look at unemployment, it's over 10% in the state right now. We're shutting down small businesses for another 30 days. This will further erode the economy. The state tax collections will be down. So we're really looking at, as we look to the future, as you know, we're always trying to look 5 years ahead. I really can't expect an increase in the state formula aid in the fiscal years of 21-22 and 22-23. I just don't see where the state will have the money. It's going to take a while to get outside of this economic shutdown. So if our expenses rise 2%, that costs about $5.2 million. And there's no increase in aid, we're going to see an imbalance in our general fund. It's going to happen fairly quickly. I think we'll be able to anticipate what's going to happen next year and then be able to look ahead and see the year after that. So as we look at that, I just want to make sure that people understand that as the economy goes, so will our funding go. And we have to kind of watch what's going on, and state collections will be way down. So we've lived through this back in 2007, 2008, when they froze the formula for 2 years. But if you recall, we went through that. So we probably should keep in mind that we'll probably have some cost containment measures we'll have to commence at some point as we look at the future of our budget as it relates to the COVID-19 situation. With that, I thank you for your time, and I just want to give you a quick update of what we're looking at right now.
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions?
This is Simi. Dan, I just had one question. Has the state ever decreased funding? So instead of freezing funding, keeping education funding the same from this biennium to the next, have they ever decreased funding for a future biennium?
I don't believe so. I've never seen it. It might have back in the 60s. I'm looking at records back. I haven't seen anything from Minnesota Miracle on. They've never decreased it. It's been frozen not many times, but several times.
Yeah, so I guess the one thing I would wonder about is if they would just shift how much they're paying like they did before. Didn't they go to 75-25 or something at some point? And maybe that would be the solution rather than reducing funding, just shifting it more to the next year.
Because of the way their fiscal year, the way they work on a cash basis, and we don't get into too much accounting talk, but it works for them to actually, right now they pay us 90% of our dedicated aid over the year, and then they catch up the 10% in the next 3 months after the school year is out. And in the past, what they've done to help them balance their books, they might shift that to 75-25, or even the last time it got as low as 60-40. And that doesn't change our revenue as we record it, but it affects our cash flow, and some districts have to go into short-term borrowing just to make it through that. But it is a solution they may try. I've had some questions on that. I've checked in with MDE, and people aren't talking right now about something like that. There hasn't been no talk yet, but that is a possibility.
What's unfortunate about that, last time we went through that, we had enough of the fund balance. We didn't have to worry about short-term borrowing. As we've watched our budget, and you know our budget concerns about fund balance, we may not have that flexibility if that happens. And so that's a concern I think it was important because if you think back to the budget updates we've had over the last couple of months, with the growth that we were going to experience, we hope we continue to experience with students. We don't know if the economy will slow down housing sales, but we were hoping that next year we'd be close or into our fund balance. I'm not sure that's going to take place now because of managing, as Dan talked about at the beginning, what the closure means for us and what we may need to do with transferring funds. So I thought that was important that we don't have decisions made now, but that we foreshadow that for you as a board and also for our public, because we've had a much more optimistic funding update over the last number of months this year because of our growth moving forward, and I don't think that's going to materialize. So we'll have to look at some, as Dan said, cost containment and some probably budget reductions, particularly if we get a 0 and 0 in the next biennium.
Yeah, and the prior, we also had our internal service fund that we hadn't designated yet. So we were able to use that as well to help us avoid short-term borrowing. Anyone else? All right, 9.0 are discussion items, and we don't have any this evening. 10.0 are action items, and 10.1 is our tentative agreement with United Teachers of South Washington County Schools, and we will have Kevin Witherspoon, our Director of Human Services, talk to us about this agreement.
Hi, good evening, Chair Burnett and members of the school board. Tonight I'm seeking approval of the tentative agreement with the United Teachers of South Washington County Schools to be effective July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2021. Members of the bargaining unit approved the tentative agreement on March 20th, 2020, and the economic costing of the tentative agreement includes the following. For wages for the 2019-2020 school year, teachers will receive step and lane movements and an increase in salary of 1.7% beginning on March 1st, 2020, and a one-time payment of $200 in the 2019-20 school year. For the 2021 school year, teachers will receive step and lane movements and an increase of 2.4% on the salary schedule as of July 1st, 2020. Effective July 1st, 2019, Adult Basic Education Access Program and homebound teachers who are members of the Teachers Bargaining Unit shall be compensated at a rate of $31 per hour. For our health insurance, we had an increase to health insurance premiums of 7.8% for single coverage and 3% for family in the first year. And then in year two, an increase of 2% for both family and single coverage. In your administrative report, it also outlines the numbers for you there too. Other benefits, additional activities added to the extracurricular Schedule C, as well as an increase in points, so $133 per point to $138 in year one, and then $140 per point in year two. We have two memorandums of agreement for non-student contact days defined, and the development of a labor management committee, as well as flexible learning days, emergency shutdown days, and length of school year. There are other items to reflect any new statute, numbers, dates, language updates, and those types of things. Administration recommends approval of this proposal.
All right, so first, can I entertain a motion to approve?
Pat Driscoll, I move to pass it.
Karen Van Leer, second.
Okay, thank you. So any questions or comments from anyone?
I would just note the flex learning days that we had in there are now going to be outstanding with all the practice that we're having this spring. So, but that really makes a huge difference in weather delays or weather closures. We'll be able to now, with the state allowing us to use those flex days and the teachers working through that, we'll be able to not have to worry about closures as far as if we had a year like we had a few years back where we closed quite a few times and ran into that issue of how many hours we have scheduled. So that's a real positive aspect moving forward, along with a number of other things in the contract. And I think with the labor management group, there's some language things that we've talked about and different things that we'll be able to continue to work on year round and not have to wait till we get back into formal negotiations.
Very good news. All right. Well, just a big thank you to both sides for the tentative agreement. Happy to approve it tonight. So we will do a roll call vote to approve.
Melinda Doles, Melinda Doles,
We didn't quite hear it, Melinda.
Yes, I approve.
Louise Hines,
Yes.
Simi Petnaik,
Yes.
Pat Driscoll,
Yes.
Sharon Van Leer,
Yes.
Katie Schwartz,
Yes.
Tracy Burnett.
Yes. Thank you. Awesome. Motion
You-
passes. Sorry.
Just said thank you.
Oh, yeah, thanks. All right, 11.0 are reports and comments. 11.1 is our superintendent's report.
Great. I thought I'd give you some general updates, and then I asked Kelly Jansen, our Director of Teaching and Learning, if she would take us through all of the resources that Teaching and Learning and have on our website to help our parents, to help our teachers and our kids through the distance learning. There's great resources, and I think it would be a good time for all of us to see what's out there along with parents, so they know where there might be some support throughout the day. So we're into our second week, and I want you to know as a board, but also our parents, that as concerns have come forward, we have worked really quickly to address those and continue to help. We've had things, as you know, with the connectivity of our certain software programs that seems to be working much better as they've adjusted. But we really worked hard to adjust. If a student is struggling throughout the day to really be able to complete their work on their own with minimal guidance from parents, what we really hope our parents are able to do is set the structure for kids, particularly our younger learners, where there's a certain time where they can log in, or if it's a not online, if it's a paper and pencil activity, to sit them down and have a place where they can get that work done. But it wasn't set up to be that the teacher as parents. Some of our parents have felt that way, and so our teachers have been great with responding and working through some of those concerns to make sure that we improve as we go along, and we make sure that all of our students are able to complete the tasks that they're given and the materials in a positive but more independent way. So early as we got into the second week, those kind of concerns came forward. I want to really thank our teaching staff and our principals. As soon as a few of the things that I was informed on and had questions, as soon as the folks were connected back with the teacher and the principal, we had areas like that solved. Kelly might mention we sent out a survey to parents and to students, and she'll remind people how to find that survey, or if they haven't seen it, because we want to continue to be flexible and get feedback and improve as we go forward. But in the second week of turning an entire system into a new approach for teaching and learning in 2 weeks, I'm really proud of our staff and the work that they've put in and the communication. And just to finish up before I turn it to Kelly, I received a great email today from one of our parents, Jennifer Boyle. And I asked Ms. Boyle if I could read this tonight, and she said she'd love to have me read it. And so I'm really pleased to read this. And this came through the survey, and it was put in as a comment, but she wanted me to see the comment, so she sent it. It's about a teacher at Liberty Ridge named Amy Sarn. And it says, Mrs. Amy Sarn from Liberty Ridge needs to be recognized by the district as a shining example of excellence. Every day in her 3rd grade, students get a video that checks in with them. She hopes that they are doing well. She notifies them of the tasks and sets academic expectations. She is consistently widely available for support, provides ample feedback to her students and their families, and maintains high learning standards, all while encouraging and motivating the kids. We could not ask for more from an educator. Her flexibility, guidance, and concern for her students and their families is second to none. Mrs. Sarn, you are to be commended for your dedication and passion to your students and their families. You are a gift to us. Thank you. Mrs. Sarn, you are unbelievably appreciated. Enjoy the long weekend, Jennifer Boyle. So I think it's a great example of outstanding work, and when educators are faced with challenges as they work through them, and I'm really pleased that I was able to see this email and this type of feedback, and we'll try to share as much of the good news as possible through our news to parents as well. So if I could turn it over to you, Kelly, and you could take us through the resources.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Jacobus. Good evening, board chair and board members. I am going to share my screen. As Dr. Jacobus mentioned, we took the time the governor gave us and built a pretty great framework, we believe, to guide this process, knowing it wasn't perfect. It was definitely a new adventure for us, but I second what he has said. Our principals and our teachers have been truly amazing. So the website reflects a lot of the framework in which we have put forward for our distance learning. And when we get questions, a lot of what we get questions about are in our website. So I wanted to show you that this evening. There's two ways to get to it. When you first open our website, you see these alerts, and you can click on the link right there for distance learning. Or it's in the scrolling banners. And if you scroll through them and you get to distance learning, you can click on that. And that takes us to where our plan has been broken out on the website, and it's been awesome to work with Pepe Barton and his team to make sure that this is up to date and has all the information that our parents need, and it's translated as much as possible. So if you scroll down, each of these banners reflect a section of our distance learning plan. And we took basically like a 40-page document and put it in here for parents to understand. So the internal staff document has a little bit more guidance for teachers as they plan their days. And this was just the information we wanted out there for parents to see. We know they're getting a lot of information, and so we're trying to make sure that we are intentional with what we're sharing with them. The first banner is an overview of our elementary distance learning plan and the expectations about Seesaw and when activities would be posted and when our teachers would be, available for students, what types of activities they'll be posting and what subject areas, and then what do families do if they're distance learning without technology, and how schools will be communicating with them. And then also, as Dr. Jacobus mentioned, we do recommend trying your best to keep on a schedule, knowing that this has turned a lot of families' worlds upside down, and this isn't maybe possible. So we recommend trying your best to keep to some schedule. So we put a sample school schedule out there. And then we have quite a few resources. And these are the questions we get a lot from parents. How to post activities, so supports for students, supports for families, and a lot of these are voiceover videos from our technology staff that they have put together to walk our parents through Seesaw. But then the other important page that we have been referring parents a lot to is the Elementary Learning Resources tab. And if you click on that, it takes you to a link where you can find a lot of additional resources for students. We have a range of students and such a range in our normal classrooms. And so this distance learning has just really exacerbated that difference. So we have some parents who are really asking, hey, my students want more to do, or I'd like my students to have more to do. So we're pointing parents in the direction of this page because there's lots of information for enrichment activities, virtual field trips, things like this. So these were resources that Teaching and Learning kind of went through and made sure they were available and vetted. Most of them are pretty simple. We are going through them and making sure that if parents do choose to use these, that there is some directions if needed for those as well. And so that's one of the most common questions we've gotten in the first few weeks is, where is there more for my kids to do? So we've been pointing them to that page as well. The next banner moves into our secondary or our middle school distance learning expectations. Our secondary students are using Schoology, and as Dr. Jacobus mentioned, there were some definite blips with Schoology. We have a weekly meeting with our representatives on Wednesday, and they feel like they're getting things under control, and so we're hopeful that that is all behind us, so we're keeping our fingers crossed there. But our middle school, because it had 8 periods a day, we did decide to split up any new activities or new posts so that a student doesn't have 8 posts in one day. We felt like that was a lot for students who are just starting in distance learning or probably have never gone online and taken a class. So we split the week up into periods 1 through 4 and periods 5 through 8. And so that is on Mondays and Thursdays, they have their 1 through 4 with new posts or new activities. And Tuesdays and Fridays, 5 through 8. Now that in no means, you're not finished with your work on Tuesday or you're not finished with your work. But we did want to try to manage the workload. We also wanted to make sure that there was time to make those connections with students and make sure that they had what they need, especially with having a lot of different teachers. So we reserved Wednesdays for that advisory time and time for teachers to have small groups. If they wanted to pull students in and have conversations with them, they could do that. They would know that Wednesday would kind of be that catch-up day. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from our families and from our teachers about the change in the alternating days for the middle school schedule. The middle school page goes on to talk about distance learning without technology and the resources, and then a middle school sample schedule as well. And then we move into high school. And high school is very similar to middle school. Activities are posted in Schoology, and students are working, and teachers are available from 10 to 12 and 1 to 3. I'll tell you, I know our teachers are available well beyond that. We have so many teachers who are working around the clock to make sure that they're giving really relevant and positive and informative feedback for our students as they're putting these posts out there. But that was just the times that we wanted to make sure that they were available. Some other resources for parents and for students. And also just that the distance learning without technology, like we mentioned, is available for any student, any family. But we're very fortunate Bob and his team have, I believe today, kind of rounded out those students that didn't have access to internet, and we were able to get them some hotspots so that they're able to now log in, and we're pretty much connected, especially at our high school level. So now we're going to move down into our middle school and our high school, but that option is available, and we definitely will make accommodations for those families. The next banner talks about the technology help and the resource page that parents can go to for lots of different resources within the technology department. Access to devices, we are, for any student or family who does not have a device and needs one, we really encourage you to contact your school's principal or your main office. We are handing out devices so that we can make sure that they stay connected for those families that do want those. Just also, again, I know we're working on those hotspots, but other opportunities in the community are available for internet, so we wanted to make sure families had that information. And then just some learning tips. It's always easier if it's possible to lessen the amount of devices connected to Wi-Fi, and just some of those troubleshooting things that we're hoping families would try before they reach out to a helpline or anything like that. There's some restarting, some of those other learning from home tips that they could follow. And then we move into grading. And we had lots of conversations regarding grading and how this is really new territory. And we have turned what we knew as education upside down. So we've made a couple decisions regarding grading. Our elementary students, because we had moved into that standards-based progress reporting, and the goal of that is communication with parents and letting them know where students are. That's part of the natural process of distance learning. So we suspended any official grading into progress reports for elementary. There is no ramifications or no requirements for that, but that natural communication process regarding progress and things like that are happening through distance learning. So we have suspended the Infinite Campus reporting for the rest of this school year for elementary students. For our middle school students, with the move to distance learning, we are grading all classes on a pass, no pass basis. And our principals are working with our teachers on what that means. We didn't want things outside of the student's control, like access to internet or access to a device or having to care for younger siblings, lots of things like that to impact their grade to a high level. So we went to a pass, no pass for all of our middle school courses. And those courses that are taken in middle school that receive high school credit are awarded the same as the high school grading process, and those courses are listed there. And then for the high school right now, based on what we currently know, which would be that we are coming back to school May 4th, we are staying with the traditional grading practices. However, we have increased the flexibility for teachers to assign a pass or no pass. Generally, only elective teachers were able to assign a pass or no pass. And now we have opened that up for any course at the discretion of the teacher and consulting with the parents and the students. If this distance learning extends beyond that May 4th, I know we will plan to have more conversations regarding that pass and no pass. But right now we are operating under that. We're planning to come back May 4th as per the governor's order.
And Kelly, can I just say, part of that discussion about the pass, no pass, if we go through the rest of the years, is ensuring that we're not hurting kids because of switching into this system. It is difficult for some kids, and we know that as much as we're really happy about the way the transition is started, we've got a lot of things to address. And for some kids, this is really difficult. And we want to make sure that the learning is what we really focus on and not the grades, to make sure that we keep them going. The other aspect is some kids that, and I heard from one of our teachers, that students that were not doing as well normally have then started to flourish. They've become more comfortable participating through the online platform. So it's actually helped in the other way. But we want to make sure that our kids, with our opportunity gaps and different things that we struggle with on a regular basis to help kids, doesn't widen because of this. So the grading, we want to be flexible with that. And I say that because we had some questions from parents, and I think Kelly responded really well to say, once we know what the full year will look like, then we can come back and have discussions about how best to grade at the high school.
All right. The next banner talks about attendance. And attendance during this distance learning does look very different. As you know, attendance is basically showing up for a class. And so that looks very different at each level, elementary, middle school, and high school. And one thing that we're just really trying to make sure that everybody has a clear understanding of is that accountability for learning or completing those assignments needs to be separated from showing up for distance learning or that attendance piece. It's not a punitive process. It's really just a process to make sure that our kids are interacting with us and our teachers are interacting with our students, and our kids are okay. And so we do ask that if parents know that their student's not going to participate because they're too ill, or there's a reason they're not going to participate in that distance learning, they let the teacher or the school know. But generally, those attendance guidelines are basically defined by the teacher a lot at the secondary level, and really at the elementary level, it's about just interacting with the teacher. Basically, have you heard from this family? Are they doing okay? But it's not an evaluation of their presence in the class. And so we've just really tried to be clear about that for the attendance piece. The next banner talks about state assessments, and we talked about it last time, but they have postponed or canceled, MCAs for this year. Any of the state testing, MTAS, the access, any alternate access. Also, the ACT, the April ACT date has been canceled, and we're working with ACT to reschedule that. And we will definitely reach out to families We know our goal is that we provide equitable access to this college entrance exam, so we are still committed to that, whether that's this year yet or even early in the fall for those current juniors, so that we make sure that we provide that opportunity for them. The next banner talks about live virtual classrooms or having WebExes or Zoom meetings. We don't say that they can't do it. However, we did put some parameters around it. It is, we had some conversations with our legal counsel just to say, you know, what does this look like? What are some parameters we could put together for our teachers as they do this? There's a lot that, as you can imagine, that could possibly go awry in a live virtual classroom that the teacher may not have a lot of control over. So really what we have said is, you know, we know it's increased your reliance on this. We know everybody misses each other. If this is a platform you're going to use, do your best to keep your groups small. Make sure you really understand the platform that you're going to use. You know how to lock people out of the meeting. You know how to turn off microphones, turn off cameras, expel someone from a meeting if necessary. So we've just tried to make sure that staff really know the platform that they're using before they venture into the live virtual classroom. And I know we have some teachers who are amazing and are doing it, and we have some teachers that really want to try, and they're really trying to learn it so that they're able to do this with their kids and their families. But it is really important that they understand all of the things that go with having a live virtual classroom. And the last banner just talks about some of the other student support services that have changed a little bit during this time. I think Michelle's going to update you on some special education and things. Our EL programming, it's very important that we make sure we stay connected with our EL families, and we're reaching out in languages that their parents can understand, that they are understanding, so that we're communicating. And then also for families experiencing homelessness or in housing transition. Crystal Gentry is working with those families and just making sure that we're supporting them and they have what they need. And so that is the information on the website, and it's a outline of the plan. The actual plan has quite a bit, like I mentioned, for our teachers in terms of guidance for our teachers. But in the immediate future, a couple of things that we are working on is a helpline. So when our students are working at night on their assignments, there's a potential that they could get a hold of someone to try to help them or tutor them. We have sent a survey, Communication sent a survey this week to our parents and our students. We have had an amazing response. I think our last, as of today at about 2 o'clock, we had over 700 students or 700 families and I think 1,000 students that had responded. So thank you for that, those that did that. And then we also are sent out a staff survey, are going to send out a staff survey to get some feedback from our teachers. And then we'll take that feedback and see if there's any adjustments we need to make. This is definitely a journey, and we know there may be things we have to do along the way. But as we know more, we'll be coming forward with more information.
Kelly, if folks haven't seen the survey, where can they find the survey if they missed it coming to their home?
I'm going to turn that over to Pepe.
Okay.
We sent it in the Connect Family newsletter to yesterday, and another batch went out today, just based off a technical reason, but we can post that on the distance learning webpage.
Sure. Okay. And I'm sorry, I think someone had a question, Kelly.
Anyone, any questions?
One thing go ahead, Simi.
Sorry, I always have questions. This is Simi. So my one question for you is, with some of the distance learning things and when grades go to pass or no pass, how do we ensure that, because so much learning is cumulative, is that the word, builds on each other? Or how do we ensure, how can we know if kids are learning what they need to learn in order to move to the next step? I'm assuming that's built into what your plans are?
Yeah, I mean, we're really trying to make sure teachers are focusing on those priority standards. So they're narrowing their focus and making sure that they have intentional activities around that. They're still doing all of the assessments and the formative feedback and the summative feedback, and turning that into a pass, no pass. We just really wanted to make sure that some of the other things that come with distance learning don't get in the way of a student's grade. I think we're going to have to have a heat team, for lack of a better word, sit down and talk about what does this mean for our students' learning in general, though. 2.5 months or 2 months out of school, what does it look like if we come back in August, and what are we going to do for these kids? What does that mean to try to get them up to speed? It's like starting a summer slide 2 months early. So I think we're going to have that conversation because we know it's not the same. And so I think that was our goal with the grades, is that they're still grading traditionally. They're still giving those students the feedback. It's just at the end of the semester that grade that the student may have gotten a B is now a C or C minus because of some reason. So they're still giving the information, but it's just different, if that makes sense.
I have a question, Kelly. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so is there going to be a certain deadline or point where a student at the high school level would have to make that decision along with their parent and their teacher, whether or not they want to switch from the letter grade to the pass, no pass?
Right now, it's initiated by the teacher having the conversation. I think if we do extend beyond the year, all of our secondary schools are very open to having that for anyone that would, like a student or parent would request that. And we have talked about some deadline, but we haven't set anything for sure. I know some are at the midpoint of the trimester. I know some are a week before the end. I know some go right up to the end. So we would definitely put that forward. But right now it's the teacher's discretion, and it can be any time during the trimester.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just mentioned about attendance because the way we're taking attendance, we want to give flexibility, particularly for secondary kids, that if they work better at night, they have that ability to do that. So we're not asking them to be at their computer or checking in at a certain time. That's where teachers are seeing, are we connecting with them? Are they engaged? But to complete their work in that, we want to allow them to have that time. That's easy to say, having a senior son who I don't know when he's going to bed because it seems like he's upside down with his circadian rhythm. But that's why the attendance, we wanted to make sure that there is flexibility because that works well for some kids. Our younger learners, probably our parents, that structure is really important, have them finish up and move forward. So Michelle, I just was, if there's a few things you've done and your team have done some great things to make sure that our kids that are on IEPs are taken care of and we're working with them closely. Is there anything you'd like to update this tonight?
Just to add a few things sort of in general about what we've been doing, if that's okay.
Yeah, if you just turn your video on, that would be great.
I forgot about the video.
There you go.
Ooh, the sunshine is right on I'm going to have to turn this just a little bit. Okay. So in just over 2 weeks, our special ed staff had to learn a completely new IEP and process for students. And then just in under 3 weeks, our special ed case managers had to complete just under 3,000 addendums for students, which is the additional page to the IEP. The independent distance learning plan is what we call that. And that took contacting parents, holding meetings by WebEx, making sure the paperwork was filled out, making sure they went through the IEP and considered all the students' needs, and then what was realistic and manageable for the student while in the distance learning format. So I think that's a pretty big accomplishment for our department in just under 3 weeks. Some of our teachers are doing some really creative things to connect with students. I've heard that a teacher created a Zoom classroom to play cards with kids. I think that's a really great way to interact with interact with kids. I just was shared a picture tonight of an early childhood student who had decorated the inside of his glass door on the front, and then the teacher decorated the outside with some really great messages. I miss you, hope you're doing well. And they did that as they were dropping off and picking up materials. There was a teacher who also created a virtual Pokemon Go club to work on social skills with a bunch of different students while in distance learning. School nurses also have really stepped up and helped out. We have our healthcare specialists working with our emergency childcare. I have a report of a school nurse of a student who they thought they had potentially COVID-19, and that nurse continued to check in with that family and the student on a daily basis, and the family felt really supported. One of the things I'm really proud of and excited about is just this week we launched our para training hub, which is going to house all of the professional development modules for our paraprofessionals. Some of them are geared specifically for special education paras, but it's open to all paras, and that shared that information today, and that launches officially on Monday. And so for paraprofessionals, it's a really great way to get training out to them. We struggle with finding a good vehicle to push training out to paraprofessionals because oftentimes jobs or they have they have very different start and end times. So this will be at their own pace, at their own leisure, and some really good things for all students. The other thing that staff are reporting, like Keith said, some of our students are really thriving in this distance learning format. The time might be more flexible. Some of the distractions are gone for students. Staff are seeing their students perform new skills that they weren't even aware that they could do. And we've had really positive feedback from families. They feel really supported with the videos and the type of work being sent out and all of the support with staff that they're readily available. And then the other thing I would have to say is with our special ed students, I can't sing enough praises to the inclusion and the equity that we've had in our department. We've really partnered with Kelly and TLS and Bob and technology to make sure all of our students had access to technology and had devices, as well as having training to apps that gen ed students have that we hadn't considered before. So it's taken a tremendous effort from multiple departments, and anytime we pose a question or anytime we want to do something, they're like, let's figure out a workaround for that, we can do that. So there's been a tremendous effort to make sure that special ed students' needs are being met and they're included in the overall picture of distance learning.
Great.
All right, then, Bob, would you just give us a quick update on anything with the technology?
Great, thanks everybody. I want to start by saying it's really too bad that we're in this situation because the amount of innovation has been just phenomenal and in such a short time. I'll just talk on 4 different topics real quick. So Schoology did have a little bit of a bumpy start scaling with the number of users globally. We feel pretty good about their ability now to sustain the number of users that they're seeing every day. We did have a few outages this week. They were communicated with the district. They were scheduled. The outages happened exactly when they were scheduled. And Schoology sent us some information to pass on to teachers and students on workarounds. So we really appreciate the partnership with Schoology. They were taken a little by surprise the first few days, but we're very positive that things are looking up with that relationship. I got a shout out to Ed Harkness, does just an amazing job supporting our families, our students, and our parents with Schoology. And so there is a schoologyhelp@sawashco.org email address. And usually before I can open them, Ed's already responded to them and engaged with a family or a teacher. And so it's really been exciting. And also our technology coaches have been working directly with teachers in the schools, and they've done just a wonderful, wonderful job. Seesaw, we did take on, so every day, Joni Quinnavalli has been doing amazing WebExes. We get nothing but good feedback from teachers and staff. The special ed team did some training with Joni this week, and Kendra Crazen is also helping with that. So that's gone really well. we're able to bring a larger group into Seesaw. So we have that as a platform for our younger learners. Device handout worked out really well for us. We feel like every student who does not have a technology device at home now has one. We have devices at every one of our schools for any additional families that we find need a device. And we also have devices that are ready for a minimal handoff swap if anything goes wrong with the device. We've got a repair plan in place. We did receive our wireless hotspots this week. And as of today, all of our secondary school families who needed internet have a hotspot either in their hand or it will be there, I guess, Monday if they didn't get there today. And just I want to talk a little bit about the process. We are sending those out based upon families. So any family that has a high schooler, a middle schooler, and some elementary students, they will have received one device with the high schooler. So in many cases, even though we've worked our way all the way through high school and middle school, we've already addressed quite a few families at the elementary school because they have older siblings. And so we expect by the end of next week that we will have wireless, cellular wireless devices for any family who does not have internet. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind, but I'm really proud of a lot of people's work.
Great. Thanks. The other important aspect of supporting kids comes through Corey Thompson and our equity and integration. And I didn't ask her tonight because I'd like to focus on the work that she's been doing with both teaching and learning and our principals throughout the system at our next meeting. So we'll spend time there. By that time, I'm hoping we won't have anything to report on technology and we'll continue to move forward. So I want to thank you, and if there's any questions, we're happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have a question? All right.
Sharon's video. Sharon, did your video just cut out? Or did you have to? Let's see if she comes back in. Go forward, maybe she had to drop off.
All right, and obviously since schools have been closed, meetings have been canceled, the board doesn't really have any formal reports this evening, but certainly open the floor if anyone had any comments or anything that they wanted to say.
Yeah, I would share it. This is Louise.
Okay.
Yeah, over spring break, I had a chance to stop in at the different locations, the 5 locations that were open for Kids Club in spring break, and check in with those people. Fabulous job they're doing. I'm sure they still are, in particular like the magic show, just because that's part of what I love. So that was great. A shout out to Community Ed. I snuck into the daddy-daughter dance that they held virtually. They live streamed it on Facebook, and then saw some of the things that daughters had done at home to get dressed up and do that. So that was just really a wonderful thing as well. And then if, because people are home, if you have a chance to check out Twin Cities Live on Monday, Brittany Hubeck, one of our teachers at Gray College, she's a 4th grade teacher there, was part of an interview with distance learning. And it would be worth picking up if you go to their website and take a look at it. She did a really good job.
Very cool, thank you. Anyone else?
I just want to mention that I attended a virtual meeting with the Association of Metropolitan School Districts, and our purpose is to lobby the legislature based on the needs of all of our districts. And we sent out a survey to all the superintendents, and finding out, what everyone needs and how we can respond to the legislature and those needs. And what we found, everybody's struggling with the same things, the non-funded, the fee-based programs and the budget, just like we had discussed earlier. And so, but I think we're sitting really well with our technology. I'm grateful, and we should all be very grateful that our community supported us on that referendum for technology, because that really helped us out in this crisis. So I just wanted to comment on that and thank our community for supporting us on that referendum. That was really a positive thing.
Thank you. Anyone else? Right. So 12.0 are the future meeting dates. 12.1, April 23rd will be a regular board meeting, as well as May 7th, we have a regular board meeting. So with that, stay healthy, stay safe, and we are adjourned.